Hi guys, my name is Stranger Pops, and today I got something pretty special to show you. I myself started to write a Stranger Things fan fiction named I Believe. It will have 8 episodes, and this episode right here is the first one to ever release. So I hope you're hyped. So I hope you want to hear this fanfiction I wrote myself, trying to continue the story of our heroes of Hawkins. This was a lot of work, so I hope you give the video a little like, give it a bit love, maybe comment your thoughts, and consider subscribing if you didn't already. So let's get started with this fan fiction. I believe. Mike took his hands off the typewriter. He could hardly believe it, but he had finished it. He had finished the D&D manual. It had taken an incredibly long time to write, almost incomprehensible in retrospect. Mike had thought long and hard about what to leave out of the story and what was better to keep in. And now it was finally done. It was finally finished. He was finally free. I believe. The words echoed in his head as he got up from his desk. The memories had brought tears to his eyes several times. But he had also enjoyed the writing process. All those memories, all those people he used to call his friends. Of course they were still his friends, but he rarely saw most of them. That's why it had been all the more wonderful to relive all those memories. He looked down proudly at the finished manual. Mike, lunch's ready. Will you get Holly? His mother called from downstairs. I will, Mike replied, startled out of his thoughts. He hurried down the stairs to the basement. When he got there, he slowly opened the door and saw Holly at the table where he used to play D&D with the others. She was drawing a picture of a brave knight. He bore a striking resemblance to Derek Turnbow, with whom she has been spending more and more time lately. Interesting. Holly, lunch, didn't you hear Mom? Yes, I'll be right there, she said, without looking up from her drawing. Mike sighed quietly and went back to the dining room. Dinner was already on the table. Ted was reading a book about finance, and Karen had just put the last plate on the table. Where's Holly? She asked. She'll be here in a minute. Mike sat down at the table without another word. Ted was silent too. So how far have you got? Asked Karen. With what? with your fantasy book. It's a D&D manual, and I finished it today. That's great! Have you finally found a publisher? How many times do I have to tell you that I'm going to distribute the book myself? And how are you going to do that? Ted interjected. Mike glanced at him. I already have an idea. I just have to hope that the others go along with it. Well, if that doesn't go wrong, Ted commented. If we now consider this denominator as our next x value, we can get a better picture of the whole term. Dustin could barely hear the teacher anymore. It was the last lesson of the day at the Princeton University, and he truly underestimated the pressure he would be under here. In terms of performance, it was no comparison to Hawkins. For weeks, Dustin had been having trouble keeping up with his classes. Things were slowly getting better, but there was still no end in sight. He had to come to terms with the fact that he had to adapt to this new world. But maybe it was also his friends he was missing here. Back at Hawkins High, they had been his emotional support, his lifesavers when they played another round of D&D with him after school or listened to one of his endless monologues about his inventions and discoveries. All of that had always made him forget about school and his stress. It had helped him switch off from everyday life. But now he had no choice but to sit here and listen to Professor Newhart's lectures. He was no less excited about meeting his not-so-pleasant roommate Luke Lehman after class, who would surely rave to him again about his previous successes in science. The school bell announced the end of class. Dustin and the other students got up from their seats and made their way outside. The hallways were crowded and noisy. Everywhere people were talking about the latest news or the upcoming exams. Most of the people Dustin passed were grouped in circles of 3 or 4, so they could keep their conversations at least somewhat private. Dustin walked past all of them. He had no friends here. It was just as surprising to him as it was for Steve and the others. Because... Steve? Steve! Dustin shouted in the middle of the hallway. Some people turned around to look what made him scream a random name so loud. But Dustin didn't care about that. He just remembered that Steve's baseball team, the Hawkins Steel Balls, had their most important game tonight. And of course Steve had invited him to watch it live in the stadium. He even said he would come and pick Dustin up, since he still hadn't got his driver's license. Dustin opened the doors of the building cheerfully and stepped outside where the sun was shining bright and welcoming. The day could only get better from here. Hands up! Against the wall! Hopper pointed his revolver at the man, who obeyed his orders and stood against the wall. Stealing from old Miss Ivory isn't very nice. I hope you know that. It was just little money. You know I have a family too. Yeah. They all say that. Now, stand still so I can put your new bracelets on. Please, don't pull too tight, because While Hopper was still rummaging for his handcuffs, the criminal spun around and punched him in the stomach. Ah! Hopper doubled over in pain and couldn't breathe properly for a moment. But then he regained his strength and set off in pursuit. Come back here, you bastard! The criminal already had a few meters head start, but Hopper knew the streets of Montauk very well by now, so he saw that he could take a shortcut to catch up. He turned left briefly and then ran sharply to the right. If the criminal was still on McFly Street, he would catch him in no time. As Hopper came out of the alley, something suddenly rammed him from the side. It was the criminal who hadn't seen him coming. Hopper quickly pinned him to the ground. So you little runt. Now I've got you. As a punishment, maybe I should cut you a bowl cut. Bowl cut like my son has. It's only for tough guys. The criminal could only gasp for breath. Word had already been spread about the new police chief, and that he had the complete city under control. "What's that?" Steve pointed to a picture of a condom. "That's a balloon," a girl said. The boy next to her shook his head in disbelief. "That's a condom. My daddy uses this a lot, but I don't really know why." "Well, that's correct. And you guys really don't know what it's used for? No? So at your age I was already much further along in my knowledge of such things, and you need to have this knowledge as well. It's really great that I've already gained a lot of practical experience. Okay, so where should I start? Well, you know how you were made, right? We talked about this last week. Yes, you showed us a woman and a man and they made love and they had 6 little nuggets, said the girl. Exactly. Now I want to tell you how to make love without getting little nuggets. I have already explained to you how daddy's mayonnaise is what fertilizes mommy's fries. Now if daddy puts on a condom, his mayonnaise can't reach the fries anymore, and no nuggets are made. Isn't that great? That's like a cheat code, a boy said. Kinda, but please remember, the wonder of life is... Steve's explanation is interrupted by the shrill ring of the school bell. It's break time, the kids scream. Steve shakes his head. I should pay more attention to the time. I haven't finished again, ate Steve to himself. Mike knocked firmly on the front door of Lucas's house. Lucas, Max, are you there? The house remained silent. Suddenly noises could be heard. Then the door opened. Mike, what are you doing here? Lucas asked. Max was standing next to him. They both looked as if they had just quickly gotten dressed. But Mike didn't care about that. He had more important things to say. I finished the manual. Wow, that's great, said Max sarcastically. Yes, that's really great. And I hope you two remember what I told you would happen if I finished it. You mean that we should help you put up advertising posters all over Hawkins because you couldn't find a publisher and now have to distribute your book yourself? Asked Lucas. Yes, please guys, I need your help. You know I don't have anyone else to ask. Dustin is in Princeton. Nancy is in Boston to work for her the Herald. Will is with Hop and Joyce in Montauk. Jonathan is in New York. And Robin is in Massachusetts. This project really is the only thing keeping you alive, isn't it? Asked Max. Maybe, but I really need your help, guys. Lucas turned to Max. Should we help him? I don't know. I mean, there hasn't been much going on lately. We could use a little excitement again, huh? Said Lucas. So, are you in? Lucas turned towards him with a smile. We're in. Nancy took the freshly printed pages of her article out of the printer. She took a deep breath. Until now her boss had only given her minor reports to write. This was the first long and challenging article she had ever written at the Herald. She had been working on it for several days, refining and improving it so that she could finally present it to him and hopefully get a surprised but proud look from Mr. Rogers. This could be the decisive article for her career, her whole career. Nancy slowly walked toward her boss's office. Don't forget to bring Mr. Rogers some coffee when you get to see him, Connor called from his desk. Nancy ignored him. She had now reached her boss's separate office. She knocked on the door and then entered. Mr. Rogers looked at her in surprise. "Miss Wheeler, what is it?" "I just wanted to show you my article about the Boeing 707-321C accident." "Boeing 707-321C? That's an important topic. Show me." Nancy handed him the article and stood nervously in her place. Mr. Rogers skimmed through the text, almost without reading it. Then he looked up at her with a serious expression. "Miss Wheeler, I think very highly of you as an employee here. But don't you think this is a little bit too big for you?" "Well, actually, I thought that... Let's just leave it at that. Maybe in a few years you'll be ready for a first big article. But you're not there yet." Nancy struggled not to show her disappointment as she left the office. "Well, was the outfit too cold for him?" Connor asked from his desk with a smug grin. Nancy could hardly hold back her tears. It had been like this for the whole time she had been working here. She quickly ran to the ladies' room, locked herself in a stall, and began to cry. And action! Jonathan pointed the camera at the actress. She was hiding behind a tree, ready to sneak up on her prey, a young man in his 20s. Suddenly she jumped out and lunged at the man. Both fell to the ground screaming. "And cut!" said Jonathan. The woman and the man both stood up from the ground. "Why don't we have stunt doubles, Jonathan?" Jonathan sighed. "You know I don't have enough money for something like that. I'm just happy you're willing to participate." The man looked at his knee. It was bleeding a bit. "Oh man, I hurt my leg." "Can we stop for today?" asked the woman. "Sure, at least we got the scene done," said Jonathan. "Okay, bye." "Bye." Jonathan sighed and watched them leave. His anti-capitalist cannibal film was still far from finished. From the depths of obscurity it has risen. The New Player's Manual by Mike Wheeler. Call this number to make a reservation. 756-202-1983. "How many more do we have to put up?" Lucas asked. "We still got 2. I would say we should put these up in the city center," said Mike. "I hope you don't want to print new posters tomorrow to put them up in other cities as well," said Max. "I wasn't planning on doing that, but it kind of sounds like a good idea." "No, wait, no, Mike, there was just a joke. Please don't." Okay. Now let's go to the library before the sun sets, okay?" The hallway lay silent in the dim light. Robin was alone, all alone. When she had come to Smith College, she had actually been looking for a shared apartment, but she hadn't found one where there was a vacancy. So for better or worse, she had to move into a small apartment on her own. And that was the worst thing she had ever experienced. Whenever she came home, she had so much to talk about and discuss. Interesting things. Who was into whom, or whether a guy had cheated on the last test. She used to be able to talk to Steve about it or ask Nancy for advice. Now she was alone and could only tell herself about the experiences of the day. She wished so much for the old days to return. The only thing she could look forward to now was the meeting in 2 days, all of them at her uncle's. Hopefully, this would happen. Robin sat down in her armchair and watched the sunset. I'm home. Hopper closed the door behind him. Dinner's ready. Will, are you coming? Asked Joyce from the kitchen. Yes, I'm coming, said Will from upstairs. So, how was your day? Asked Joyce. They were all now sitting at the dining table. Hopper smiled. Just a bit thief that I had to chase down. Stole some money from old Miss Ivory. I can still run pretty fast for my old age. Yes, you can. You had a lot of training, you know. Right. And you too? How is Will doing with his new painting? He's doing good. Good, right, Will? Yes, it's almost finished, said Will. We're still not allowed to see it, right? Asked Hopper. Yes, it's supposed to be a surprise, said Will with a smile. Will this boy come over again anytime soon? Asked Hopper. You mean Carlton? Asked Joyce. Yes, Carlton. No, he won't come over ever again, said Will. Joyce looked at him surprised. I thought you were getting closer. We were, but then I noticed some things, and can we just maybe stop talking about that? Okay, of course, said Joyce. We was trying to change the topic quickly. Carlton wasn't the right friend for him. He had just been away to forget his past. Nothing more. Mike and the others had reached the library. Now it was time to put up the last two posters. Lucas looked at the library door. I think that would be a good place for a poster, said Lucas. Good idea, but we should hurry. It's getting dark, said Mike. They walked over to the library. On the way they passed the memorial for the deceased. Mike stopped. Suddenly he felt uncomfortable. Tears began to well up in his eyes. He could see 11 in front of him. One last kiss. One last goodbye. In an instant his whole life had changed that day. He had never experienced anything like it before. Mike, I hung up the poster. Where should I put the last one? Mike quickly wiped the tears from his eyes and turned around to Lucas. He had to think for a moment. Then he looked over at Melville's. The store had been closed for years, but the large glass doors were still covered in posters. How about Melville's? Mike asked. All right, Max said. They walked across the street to the store. Mike took the poster and was about to stick it on the door when it suddenly gave way under his pressure and sprang open. I always thought the store had been closed, said Lucas. Me too, but apparently that's not the case. We'd better just stick the poster on the shop window because... Mike suddenly paused. He seemed to have seen something in the store. Mike, what's going on? What is it? Asked Max. Mike couldn't quite believe what he was seeing. Was it real? Or was he just imagining things? Mike, what's wrong? Asked Lucas. But Mike didn't answer. He went into the store and up to a counter. There was a screw sticking out of it, which had probably come loose over time. But it wasn't the screw that interested Mike. It was what was hanging on it. A piece of fabric. The piece of fabric looked like it came from a swimsuit. It was light blue in color. It almost looked like it came from the swimsuit Elle had been wearing when he last saw her. Mike couldn't think straight anymore. Only 3 words were in his head. Elle is alive.